whistle tour around the UK. We are now into month 7. We've got just 2 more days left, and then we're going back to my parents in Suffolk to clear off the to-do list for the son. As mum and dad are getting older, my to-do list gets bigger. So we've travelled round and kindly got invited down by all in the family to come down and to look around and see what they're up to. And as we've travelled around the UK, can I ask, does anyone know about the 2030 agenda? Does anyone know what's going on that side? A few of you. So, for those who don't know, the 2030 agenda was set out by the World Economic Forum, who have set about a destruction job of all small family-owned farms, and it is a physical agenda which they put in place. And as a result of that, we're seeing farmers going out of business left, right and centre. At this point, we lost 7,000 small farms in the last 12 months. Now, people can say, and I get this from a lot of the farmers, they go, no, I don't see that, you know, it's just bad in our industry at the minute. No, this is desecration of the farming industry deliberately to pull to bits the food supply chain. And unfortunately, we're seeing it unfold on a vast scale now. So for me, coming from a farming background, and I grew up on a dairy farm, granddad had 500 milking cows, and for me as a 5-year-old, all I wanted to do was to play on the farm. That was it. So, but the challenge we've got is those opportunities for kids are sliding away. The things what we did as kids are no longer there. You know, what kids now don't want to do this, you know, in reality. So I decided, after 40 years in the fruit and veg trade and running my own farm and living on the family farm, that I would convince Gloria, my partner, that it'd be a good idea to go on tour and to tell the rest of the country what's going on with the food side and to enlighten people about how this is going to play out. And she looked at me and like I was mad, but said, lovely, good idea darling, let's do it. So we set about doing the tour back in February. We've been on tour, we've done 9,000 miles so far in the little blue camper. We've racked up speaking to over 20,000 people. We've done over 100 talks. We've interviewed farmers. We've been involved in all sorts of garden parties for farmers, all sorts of weird and wonderful things. But where's it got us? And that's the big question. Now, for me, I had a vision in my head that when I got to the end of this tour, I wanted the general public to have a greater understanding of food as a whole, what shite supermarkets sell, and what farm shops sell. Been a massive difference. And you know, if I ask the question, is there anyone here who uses a supermarket? Yeah, look, no one's going to shoot you if you just say yes, right? But it's just a question because we all do. We have to because of certain things. Well, that's changing, I will say. There is a company in Scotland called the Good Food Project who we work closely with, which we're going to now be launching for the UK side of things. For England, Wales and Ireland, we're going to be running their online store, which has over 3,000 items, all organic, chemical-free stuff, because it's the chemicals what's the issue in the food. And no matter whether people want to accept or don't want to accept what I'd say, that's on them. I've done my own due diligence, I've done my own research, I've seen how the food industry has changed beyond all belief in the last 40 years, beyond all belief, from the farming side to the fruit and veg wholesale side. Just to give you an idea, pre-pandemic, I've got a friend who's a Tesco's manager, and he's very high up in Tesco's now, to the point he has about 70 stores under his belt now. And just to give you an idea, that pre-pandemic, the stores held 67% more food than they do now. Within the system, so within the store, within the warehouse, within the distribution system, 67% more. So they're hiding the fact to the public that the food's running out. Gloria went into Sainsbury's the other day to try and buy some nuts. We couldn't get any anywhere else, so I was going to Sainsbury's and get some. And she came out, and the first thing she said to me, the store's full, but there's no food in there. because they don't sell any food anymore. So as we've travelled around the country, and you know, we come from East Anglia, and where we are in East Anglia, it's very barren. And I mean very barren. There's no hills, there's no trees, there's no hedges. Average size of a field is 100 to 200 acres. And as a result of that, we grow wheat, barley, sugar beet, oats, maize and rapeseed. Not one of them is food. And it all goes to processing plants that supply supermarkets, so they can sell more shite. So, as we've travelled around the country, we're talking to farmers, and I say to farmers, let me ask you a question. How often do you have anyone, because they say, well, we don't see any public, we don't have anybody come and buy anything. How often do you get someone rock up at the farm gate and say, can you sell me a ton of sugar beet, please? Because it ain't going to happen. How many people want a bale that size? Nobody wants it. So the farmers have got to take ownership on the fact that they need to now start producing food again. Fruit and veg, meat. There is a massive campaign undergoing at present with the farming side to get rid of meat and dairy, and I don't know if you're aware of that, but you'll see the minute I tell you, check the newspapers out in the next few days, and you'll see this all over the place if you buy into that media. The challenge is that they want to reduce by 2050. By 2030, they want 50% of all the meat gone and all the dairy. By 2050, they want it all gone. Lock, stock and 2 smoking barrels. No meat, no dairy whatsoever. Well, I don't know about you, but I enjoy raw milk. For me, I have meat for breakfast, for dinner and for tea. I appreciate vegans want to be vegans, but I don't want to be a vegan, and I ain't going to buy into it. It's unfortunately, again, another thing that's been encouraged and paid for by the likes of Bill Gates. And he is evil, I have to say. Some of the things that are going on, obviously Glorious and Nigerian, some of the things that are going on out there at the moment are horrific across Africa, because he's gone in with GMO food and GMO seed, and what happens? They set it at the end of the year. If it does come up, then you can't grow nothing from it because the seed doesn't do anything. So please sir, can I have some more? And that's where they want to get us to. So I made a decision I'm not going to take part in any way, shape or form to the 2030 agenda. I don't know if have you all been in the shop at some point? If you haven't, before you leave, make sure you go in. And you'll notice there's no cameras apart from the one to see if anyone steals anything, but there's no digital ID checking, because that's going to be the big thing which is going to be a kicker in the next few months. For those who don't know, there's a petition going around at the minute, and I am not a lover of petitions. But one thing it's going to be really good for, and over 2 million people have signed it so far, it is going to wake the public up to what's going on. Because if you go to a supermarket and cannot buy food without a digital ID, which is where they're trying to get us to, they say, well, you can't even, here's your digital money, and when you go to the supermarket, make sure you've got your digital ID, and then you can pay with your digital money. Now, for those who don't know how this is going to work, it gets a bit scary and a bit out there, to be honest, because when I first looked at it, if they give you digital currency, so just so we clarify, that can be spent anywhere, and I mean anywhere in the country. If I give it to Gloria, she can spend it in the shop, Ollie can take it into town and pay fuel with it, it ends up in someone else's hands, blah blah blah. The digital currency, what they want to do is have it so it's limited to 15 miles from your house to stop you travelling. So when you go into the supermarket, if you go to pay for something, let's say I fancy a nice steak for dinner tonight, but I'm over my carbon credits, I won't be allowed to have the steak. If I go too far from my home, the money won't work because I can't pay for food because I'm too far from my house, so I've got to walk closer to my house. That's what digital ID brings. You need to fight this. If you've never fought against anything else in this country, for Christ's sake, fight against digital ID, because it's dangerous.